Sir, you need to vacate this seat immediately. First class is for Platinum Elite passengers only. The words hung in the stale cabin air like a final verdict. The plane rocked gently in mid-turbulence as Marcus Coleman looked up from his tablet, blinking once as he processed the sudden challenge. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he straightened in seat 1A, brushing an invisible wrinkle from his lapel, his breathing steady. He had flown this route dozens of times. He had earned every mile, every upgrade, every credential. But today, none of that seemed to matter. The lead flight attendant, Laura Hensley, stood over him with crossed arms and a face that said she had already made up her mind. "You need to move to economy," she said again, louder this time, glancing at the other first-class passengers for support. A few heads turned. Some leaned closer. In seat 1B, Elliot Crane, a well-dressed white man in a paisley tie, snorted and said with a smirk, "He doesn't belong up here." Probably wandered up front thinking no one would notice. Another passenger adjusted his camera phone, subtly beginning to record. "Before we continue, where are you watching from? If what's happening to Marcus feels familiar, leave a comment below. Justice only matters when we speak up. Stay with us because in just 25 minutes, this man turns the tables without ever leaving his seat." Marcus set down his tablet and looked Laura in the eye. "Check your records," he said calmly. "I'm in the right seat." Laura's lips tightened. "Your ticket says economy. Take your assigned seat or we'll have to involve security when we land." She pulled a paper stub from her pocket and thrust it toward him. "Here, take this. You're assigned 24C. Marcus glanced at it and didn't take it. "That's not my name," he replied. "And that's not my seat." Derek Vaughn, the cabin supervisor, appeared behind Laura, scrolling on his crew tablet with quick flicks of his finger. Confirmed, he said loud enough for the nearby row to hear. "This passenger is not on the manifest for 1A. His booking must have been reassigned." He turned the screen briefly to show a blank space under Marcus's name. "You've been flagged. You need to move." Elliot leaned forward again. "See?" Knew something was off. "This is first class, not charity seating." Murmurs rippled across the cabin as Marcus sat still, breathing evenly, his fingertips resting on the armrest. "You're making a mistake," he said, "and every step you take is being logged." The plane shook gently again as the pilot adjusted altitude. Someone in 2D pulled out their phone. The screen of Marcus's seat suddenly went dark. Derek grinned. "You're disconnected now." Marcus turned to him. "So are you." Laura rolled her eyes. "We'll let the captain know you're refusing to comply." But she hadn't checked the passenger records thoroughly. She hadn't recognized the quiet force behind those calm eyes. Marcus Coleman, age 58, wasn't just another businessman in a sharp navy blazer. He was the founder and CEO of SkyTech Innovations, the very firm that Horizon Airlines had recently signed a multi-million-dollar contract with to modernize their passenger verification and seat reservation systems. The irony was thick, but Marcus wasn't interested in theatrics. What mattered now was exposure. What mattered was letting them dig their own grave with each careless command. Behind him in seat 2B, Jada Holmes, a SkyTech systems analyst, watched quietly, already navigating her tablet to Horizon's internal crew behavior records. In 3A, Leonard Brooks, a seasoned CNN field correspondent, had started a discreet live stream, his camera angled low, his face unreadable. In 1C, Maya Patel, an active Reddit user with a large following in R aviation, had begun recording with a single tap. In the economy cabin, Nia Carter, SkyTech's head legal advisor, was texting Marcus updates from the system logs. Derek just posted on crew chat, "Unauthorized in 1A. I'm tracking everything." Up in the cockpit, pilot Colin Hayes tapped a button near his collar that activated his personal body cam, an unofficial safety measure he'd taken since the last time he saw a black passenger falsely accused. And on the other end of a private satellite line, Horizon Airlines COO Sarah Miles picked up her phone with a puzzled voice. "Marcus," she said, "what's going on?" He spoke clearly into the seat console handset. "Sarah, I want you to pull up Laura Hensley's file, specifically past passenger interactions. There was a pause. Then Sarah's voice returned hushed and troubled. 2 documented complaints, both racial bias. One filed internally, one external. Never disciplined. I'm flagging this now. Marcus ended the call and looked at Laura without a hint of a smile. You might want to prepare a statement, he said. I don't think your supervisors are going to back you up much longer. Jada's tablet pinged with confirmation. Laura's record was loaded. Derek's recent system changes were visible, and Patricia Lowe, the in-flight manager, was listed as recently locking Marcus's profile without cause. Jada sent a quiet text to Marcus. Everything's here. You're clear. She's not. Marcus nodded. The cabin rumbled again, but it wasn't just the engines now. The tension was shifting. People sensed something was unfolding beyond a seating dispute. Maya Patel looked up from her phone and said aloud, just loud enough to carry, "This man's not causing a scene. He's being targeted." A few passengers murmured. Elliot scoffed. "He's overreacting. Just take the damn economy seat." Derek looked toward Laura. "Want me to print a removal notice?" Laura nodded. "Do it." Marcus raised his voice, not in anger, but with conviction. "Do that and you'll be explaining it on every major network before we land." It was already too late. The footage was uploading. The stream had crossed 50,000 viewers, and Jada had just entered a SkyTech override code that granted them access to crew directives quietly stored in Horizon's training app. One line caught her attention. Prioritize elite appearance profiles when resolving conflicts. It was tagged active. She looked up stunned. "Marcus," she whispered. "I found the trigger." He didn't look away from Laura. "Send it, because in 25 minutes justice wouldn't just be spoken, it would be automated." The cabin lights dimmed slightly as turbulence persisted, but the tension brewing in first class had nothing to do with the weather. Laura Hensley returned to the front row with a new strategy, this time with the microphone in her hand. She clicked it on, cleared her throat, and addressed the entire cabin in an even tone that barely masked the panic behind it. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're addressing a security concern in the forward cabin. Please remain seated and refrain from recording or engaging." The announcement dropped like a stone in water. Conversations halted. Heads turned. Derek Vaughn, already seated at the jump seat nearby, tapped into the crew app again and publicly flagged Marcus Coleman's seat as compromised. His caption read, "Potential risk in 1A. No confirmed ID match." In the row ahead, Elliot Crane shot Marcus a disgusted look, stood up despite the fastened seatbelt sign, and shoved Marcus's shoulder. "You heard her," he barked. "This is about our safety. Horizon's just protecting us." Marcus stayed seated, his jaw tight but his voice level. "Touch me again," he said, "and I promise your name will be known for all the wrong reasons." Maya Patel, who had stayed silent until now, stood as well, her voice strong and pointed. "Where's the evidence?" she asked. "You're accusing this man of what exactly?" Derek snapped his head toward her. "Ma'am, I need you to sit down immediately." Passengers, now visibly anxious from the turbulence and the rising tension, began to murmur louder. "Remove him," someone said. "Why are they letting this continue? Why is he resisting?" Marcus looked straight ahead and spoke to no one in particular. "This is criminal slander." Laura didn't flinch. She turned to Derek and whispered something unintelligible, and moments later, Derek tapped a new command into the app. Marcus's reservation was now marked restricted. The screen at 1A blinked and shut down again. Derek leaned in. "You're not staying here," he said coldly. "Your record's locked. You've been removed from the manifest." Patricia Lowe, the in-flight manager who had been watching from a few rows back, stepped forward and whispered to Laura, "He's a problem. Do it now." With a simple click on her tablet, Patricia locked Marcus's Skyflyer profile using their satellite link. A chime rang in the cabin. Marcus, now glancing calmly between them, said, "You're all exposed and you don't even realize it." Elliot turned to the cabin. "Come on, folks. Who wants this guy up here?" He laughed and pointed. "First class isn't a shelter. Horizon's for elites." Derek, emboldened, approached with a folded sheet of paper in hand. "Mr. Coleman, this is your formal removal notice. You're to move to the economy section immediately or face legal consequences." Phones lit up. Screens glowed. Marcus didn't touch the paper. Instead, he glanced down at his smartwatch. "This is being documented," he said. "All of it." Then came a quiet moment of memory, Marcus's mind clear. Despite the storm around him, flashed back to a conference in 2011 where a boardroom of white investors told him SkyTech would never win FAA contracts because aviation is about legacy, not disruption. That was the day he began designing SkyTech's proprietary conflict tracking system, and it was running now. In the cockpit, Colin Hayes adjusted his headset and checked a secondary feed he had just overheard Patricia, via a mistakenly open crew channel, mutter, "Older black men like him never fit right in first class." Colin blinked. Then he reached for his phone and quietly texted the quote to Maya Patel in 1C. Her eyes widened as she read the message. She looked over at Leonard Brooks, who nodded silently. He had captured Patricia's voice, too, from his live stream in Seat 3A. "We've got it," he whispered. "We have the motive." In a matter of seconds, Leonard's CNN feed crossed 150,000 live viewers. The headline beneath the video read, "Bias in the Sky Horizon Passenger Faces Allegations with No Proof." In her seat, Maya was already typing. She opened Reddit and dropped the first explosive post in R Aviation, attaching a screenshot of Patricia's directive, which Jada had quietly sent her prioritize elite appearance profiles when resolving seat conflicts. She wrote, "I'm on Horizon Flight 227. Black man in 1A being humiliated no reason. Crew is lying. They have a protocol targeting passengers by looks. We have proof." She signed off with hashtag Horizon Bias. In less than 2 minutes, her post hit the front page. 5 minutes later, it had 500,000 upvotes. The comments section exploded unreal. "Sue them. Boycott Horizon." Screenshots spread to Twitter and Facebook. Jada, still silent in 2B, activated SkyTech's internal mirroring tool, capturing every input from the crew tablets in real time. She whispered to Marcus, "The directive is active. I just found Patricia's override code." Marcus gave a slow nod, then adjusted the collar of his blazer. The murmurs in the cabin grew louder. Someone stood in the aisle. "You're not throwing him out," the man said. "This is wrong." Patricia appeared again and began ordering passengers to sit, yelling phones down, all of them. "This is confidential." But no one listened. Screens lit up everywhere now. Leonard's CNN feed had crossed 300,000 live. NBC's onboard crew in 4A began setting up a proper camera. A child in 2C whispered, "Daddy, are they bullying that man?" Derek's face was red. "That Reddit post is fake," he shouted. Patricia gritted her teeth and turned to Laura. "Confiscate the phones. I don't care how." But she didn't move. She had seen the same thing everyone else had. The entire cabin, first-class economy, and beyond was watching. And the world was watching with them. The air inside the first-class cabin had become thick with noise tension and digital heat. Patricia Lowe, holding the intercom like a weapon, clicked it on and declared, "For the safety of our passengers and crew, we are addressing a confirmed threat in the forward cabin. Remain calm." Her voice was crisp, rehearsed, the same way you'd expect a pre-recorded evacuation notice to sound. But everyone knew exactly who she meant. Elliot Crane, never one to miss a performance, stood up, snatched a drink coaster from the service tray, and flung it at Marcus Coleman's chest with a sneer. "This seat's not yours. You were never supposed to be here," he said loud enough for every aisle to hear. The coaster bounced harmlessly off Marcus's navy blazer, landing face down beside his tablet. Marcus didn't move. He picked it up, placed it back on the tray, and said, "What you just did will follow you longer than this flight." But Derek Vaughn wasn't done. From the galley, he grinned, tapped a new command into the crew app, and said coldly, "You're officially erased." A quiet beep followed. Marcus's name disappeared from the flight manifest entirely. Passengers gasped. One muttered, Did he just wipe the guy out of the system? Leonard Brooks, still streaming from 3A, zoomed in on the app screen as it flashed red. NBC's onboard producer in 4A whispered into her mic, "We're staying on this. Do not cut." Laura Hensley watched her face tightening as the consequences caught up with the lies. Marcus looked up at Patricia. "You've locked yourself into this, and the door's closing." Just behind Marcus, Jada Holmes tapped away furiously. "They've overwritten your profile," she whispered. "But I've already mirrored the code. We can flip this." In the distance, Colin Hayes sent a silent cockpit transmission. He had just recorded Patricia calling Marcus an image risk. Her words, sourced straight from her headset, were already uploading to a secure drive. Elliot turned again and shouted to the whole cabin, "How much longer are we going to let this guy play victim? This is first class." "It's for people who built something, not for someone who stumbled in." Marcus blinked once. "You want to talk about building something," he said softly. "I've spent 30 years building what you're about to see fall apart." For a moment, time stilled. The screens flickered once more as turbulence rolled through the cabin like a slow wave. In his mind, Marcus was back in a New York boardroom 12 years ago, surrounded by executives who dismissed him. "Aviation belongs to institutions," one had said. "You're not one of them." That same week, SkyTech Innovations was born from his home office, funded on personal savings and a promise to his late father. Marcus had sworn then that no system would ever erase someone like him again. And now the time had come to make good on that vow. He reached down, pulled a slim SkyTech USB from his briefcase, and handed it backward to Leonard Brooks without turning. "Get this to CNN," he said. "It's time." Derek lunged forward to intercept, but Leonard already had it in his grip. In seat 2B, Jada pulled out her own secondary device and began uploading from SkyTech's secured satellite channel. "Just in case. Backup's on the way," she said. "We're taking their filter algorithm public." In the aisle, passengers whispered, "Did he just say CNN? Is he leaking something?" Patricia caught on. "Stop them," she barked at Laura. "Shut this down now." But Laura didn't move. She'd seen enough. 10 rows back, Nia Carter's phone pinged. "CNN online," the message read. "Uploading now." In 3A, Leonard opened the USB and launched the file Horizon Internal Filtering Protocol, PDF. The document was horrifying. A coded algorithm that factored race, age, and attire into automatic seat validation checks. Tags like Profile Mismatch Risk Appearance Level 2 recommend reassignment. Within 2 minutes, the file hit CNN. Com under the headline, "Exclusive Horizon's internal system penalizes passengers based on appearance." On screen, the anchor's voice cracked through, "This just in, CNN has obtained verified documents showing Horizon Airlines uses an internal algorithm to suppress seating rights for certain passengers. We're learning more about a man currently on board who may have triggered this by simply sitting in his assigned seat." Comments flooded in, "This is outrageous. Systemic profiling on a plane." He warned them. Within 8 minutes, the page hit 10 million views. Jada, still working in the seat behind Marcus, piped the CNN stream directly into the cabin via the in-seat screens, overriding the previous flight info. One by one, passengers turned to see a CNN graphic labeled "Horizon's Biased Algorithm, The Breakdown." Patricia's face turned pale. Derek stood frozen. Elliot backed away toward 1C, muttering, "This can't be real." But it was. The numbers were real. The code was real. The system was exposed. NBC's camera turned its full attention to Marcus, who hadn't moved from his seat in 1A. He picked up his tablet, refreshed the feed, and saw the headline for himself. A quiet vibration buzzed on his wrist. It was Nia. Her message, "He just opened an investigation. You're clear to proceed." He typed back, "Shut it down." Jada leaned forward. "You sure?" He nodded once. "Kill switch protocol." She tapped the icon on her dashboard SkyTech console. "Command ready." Leonard looked at Marcus. "You planned for this?" Marcus replied simply, "I planned for every version of this." The cabin was silent. Every screen showed the same image now, Horizon's algorithm exposed, streaming live on CNN. In 1C, Maya Patel posted the video feed to our aviation with the caption he warned them. They didn't listen. The post surged past 1 million upvotes within minutes. Patricia turned and hissed to Laura, "Tell the pilot to lock the system, block all external access." But in the cockpit, Colin Hayes had already overridden the order. Too late, he said aloud to no one. "It's out." Marcus looked around the cabin not to savor the moment, but to mark it. This wasn't about revenge. It was about visibility. "You tried to erase me," he said calmly to Derek, Laura, and Patricia. "But I designed the system you used, and I kept a back door open. Always." And from his seat, Marcus Coleman took command of the narrative because some systems don't get fixed from the outside. Sometimes you have to sit down to shut it all down. At Horizon Airline's corporate headquarters in Dallas, the mood had shifted from Friday quiet to full-blown emergency. Conference calls buzzed on speakerphones. Executives stood around glass-walled offices with furrowed brows and half-drunk coffees, refreshing their phones with shaking hands. On the central wall of the operations center, a live CNN feed played in grim silence. The words at the bottom of the screen read, "Breaking Horizon Algorithm Discriminates by Appearance Source CEO of SkyTech Onboard Flight 227, Alan Kessler." Horizon's CEO burst into the war room holding his tablet like it was a live grenade. "What the hell happened?" he barked. "Why is Marcus Coleman's name attached to this?" One of the digital officers, pale-faced and sweating, stammered, We didn't know it was him, sir." The crew flagged him as suspicious. System Auto reported a mismatch. Alan slammed the tablet on the table. "You don't mismatch a man who built your infrastructure." Patricia Lowe's name flashed across the top of the screen as CNN played back her in-flight announcement about a security concern. Alan watched the footage in stunned silence. Then he turned to legal. "Who authorized our software to scan for appearance mismatches?" A junior compliance officer shrugged. "That protocol, it was buried in a 2021 update. No one's claimed ownership since." In the corner, Horizon's media liaison whispered #Horizon Bias is trending above the Super Bowl. It just hit 20 million views. Alan rubbed his temple. "Shut down external feeds, lock social media, and someone get Patricia on the line now." But the line wasn't connecting, because Patricia was still airborne, and she had no idea her career was about to hit the tarmac harder than the plane itself. Back on Flight 227, turbulence rocked the aircraft as passengers sat riveted by the drama unfolding on their in-seat screens. The cabin wasn't angry anymore, it was silent, still watching Marcus Coleman with a kind of collective awe. He hadn't stood up. He hadn't raised his voice. Yet from seat 1A, with nothing but his tablet and a team of unseen allies, he had exposed a national scandal and forced the world to listen. Laura Hensley, who had once towered over him with orders, now hovered near the galley gripping a cabinet for balance, her eyes wide and darting. Derek Vaughn had stopped pretending to be in control. He stood frozen near the cockpit door, sweat dripping from his temple. In economy, passengers craned their necks to glimpse the first-class cabin like it was the front row of history. "Is that him?" someone whispered. "That's the guy who brought it all down." Marcus didn't react. He was scanning server logs sent by Jada from 2B. Every keystroke Patricia made, every override Derek tapped, every racist comment captured on cockpit surveillance. It was all there, compiled, tied up, ready. And then his phone buzzed. Nia Carter's message flashed. Alan just tried to blame Patricia. She blamed Derek. "They're all panicking. You're greenlit." Marcus responded with 2 words, "Do it." Jada took a steady breath and tapped a new command, SkyTech Global Override. Execute System Freeze. At that moment, Horizon's live ticketing software, used in over 70 airports and linked to more than 200 international travel partners, began to slow, then fail. Customers attempting to book flights were met with frozen screens, error messages, and blank loadouts. Agents at airport counters stared in confusion as boarding confirmations vanished. And within 5 minutes, Horizon's entire booking operation was offline. Leonard Brooks, still filming, got the message from his producer in Atlanta. They shut the system down. It's real. This is historic. He whispered to Marcus, "They're cooked." Marcus nodded once. "Not yet, but they're close." Jada leaned in from behind. "It's complete. We've locked every non-critical system. Emergency ops remain. But they can't sell a seat. Not until we release it." In the cockpit, Colin Hayes got the alert, glanced back at the chaos in first class, and smiled faintly. "Good," he murmured. About time someone held them accountable. At Horizon HQ, screens started going dark. Error alerts flooded the command center. "Booking queue down," someone yelled. "Web interface is frozen," another shouted. Alan Kessler stared mouth open as he realized what Marcus had done. "He's not exposing us," he whispered. "He's disabling us." Legal asked, "Is this cybercrime?" The CTO shook his head. "Skytech's in our vendor contract. They have fail-safe authority under abuse protocols, and this qualifies." Alan's hands trembled. "He's holding us hostage." Then a louder alert hit the main screen. Forbes. Breaking news: Marcus Coleman shuts down Horizon booking system, mid-flight airline accused of systemic discrimination. The article included Jada's screenshots, Maya Patel's Reddit post, and links to the full CNN leak. A quote from Marcus appeared in bold: "I didn't want to crash their system. I wanted to hold up a mirror. This is what happens when you design injustice into the code." The comms team dropped their phones. The legal team stood in stunned silence. Alan whispered, "We're finished." Onboard Derek tried one last time to recover control. "We can fix this," he told Patricia, whose hands trembled as she stared at her now disabled crew tablet. Maybe we can tell Marcus it was a system glitch, but she didn't reply, because her tablet had just rebooted with a new screen, one she hadn't seen before. It read, "System override initiated by Skytech Command, M. Coleman." Below it, a message pulsed, "Terminate access." She tapped it instinctively, and the screen blinked off permanently. From seat 1A, Marcus turned to her, calm, composed. "That was your last input." And then his eyes lifted to the cabin as a new notification flashed across every screen: "System suspended, pending compliance review." Marcus picked up his tablet, typed a final line into the command log, and sent it to Nia. "Now we talk terms." She replied instantly. "Forbes just hit 5 million shares. They're calling it a digital mutiny. You're trending worldwide." He set the tablet down and folded his hands. Around him, first-class passengers, once silent, complicit, indifferent, were now witnesses. No one reached for champagne. No one complained about service. They watched a man wronged in silence rewrite the rules mid-air. The plane flew on steady and smooth now, but for Horizon Airlines, the ground had already begun to fall away. At cruising altitude, with the booking system suspended and CNN streaming live to every seat screen, the cabin of Flight 227 had gone quiet, not the silence of fear, but of realization. First-class passengers who had once glared now sat still, their eyes pinned to the man in seat 1A, who hadn't raised his voice, hadn't moved an inch, and yet had brought an entire airline to its knees. Marcus Coleman tapped once on his tablet, sending a secure message to Nia Carter. "Bring Alan in. I want him face to face." And 5 minutes later, a live video feed blinked onto the cabin's overhead screens. There, in a boardroom back in Dallas, stood Alan Kessler, tie loosened, face pale, flanked by 2 Horizon attorneys and 1 visibly shaken PR rep. He cleared his throat. "Marcus," he began, his voice strained, "we're asking you to restore the system. This has become a crisis beyond your personal case." Marcus didn't blink. "Your crisis began the moment your crew decided my presence was a threat. I'm here to resolve it, but I do so on my terms. Alan tried to recover. We're prepared to issue a formal apology and investigate the matter fully. Marcus looked down at the list on his screen and read aloud without emotion. Fire Laura Hensley. Fire Derek Vaughn. Fire Patricia Lowe. Ban Elliot Crane from future flights. Acknowledge your algorithmic bias publicly. Then we talk about restoring your system. The attorneys murmured off-screen. Patricia, watching the screen from the galley, staggered back a step, her face flushed. He can't do this, she whispered. But the crew tablets were still locked, still flashing Marcus's override. They could do nothing but watch. Alan swallowed hard. We'll need a moment to confirm termination protocols. Marcus raised one brow. You don't have a moment. Your booking loss is just past $14 million. Every minute is a mile deeper. Derek, arms folded and jaw clenched, shook his head. This is a setup. You people and your... He stopped himself, realizing too late the entire plane was listening. Leonard Brooks's CNN stream was now echoing that moment to viewers across the country. Laura tried to step forward. I didn't mean harm. I was just doing my job. But Marcus turned to her, measured and cool. Your job was to serve, not to decide who deserves dignity. A tone sounded. Nia's message appeared. Legal just authorized the terminations. They're doing it live, all three. A new feed appeared on screen showing Horizon's boardroom as 3 internal emails were projected on the wall. Termination of Laura Hensley Flight Services, termination of Derek Vaughn Cabin, Supervisor, termination of Patricia Lowe in-flight operations. One by one, the 3 were formally dismissed. Alan looked up, the weight in his voice unmistakable. They're gone. We've done as you asked. Now please unlock the system. Marcus didn't answer immediately. He turned to look at Laura, who now stood hollow-eyed, clinging to the edge of the galley wall. Derek's fists clenched. Patricia, already seated in the rear, stared straight ahead as if hearing nothing. Then Marcus said quietly, They're gone, but what they represented is not. Elliot Crane, still seated in 1B, leaned back and muttered under his breath, This is absurd. They're letting you play judge-jury. Marcus cut in. Mr. Crane, you kicked a man's briefcase, you incited bias, you weaponized perception, and you will never fly Horizon again. Alan nodded grimly on screen. Your frequent flyer status is revoked, permanently. Elliot stood furious and was promptly told by a flight attendant to return to his seat or risk arrest upon landing. He sat, silent, smaller. Then came the moment no one expected. Alan looked up and asked, Who are you? Marcus. The question wasn't rhetorical. It carried a kind of desperation, as if realizing too late that they'd underestimated the man in seat 1A. Marcus closed his tablet, folded his hands, and spoke to the entire cabin, the airline board, and millions watching live. I am Marcus Coleman, CEO of SkyTech Innovations, former FAA Senior Systems Consultant, architect of 3 aviation security frameworks. The systems you rely on, I designed them. The backdoors you didn't know about, I built those too. And when I boarded this flight, I didn't come here to wage war. I came here to observe. But what I saw couldn't be ignored. The silence that followed was heavy. Leonard's live stream jumped to 9 million viewers in less than 60 seconds. Maya Patel's Reddit thread surged again as people clipped Marcus's words into quote cards, I didn't come to wage war. I came to observe. Alan sat back in his chair. We had no idea. Marcus replied, That's the problem. And then, just as the moment reached its apex, came the final twist that would define the headlines. Nia Carter posted a statement to TMZ verified and time-stamped, FAA confirms Marcus Coleman as former regulatory advisor for federal flight systems. SkyTech Innovations currently holds over 60% of market share in aviation algorithm licensing. Alongside it was a short video, a clip from 2016, of Marcus speaking at a federal aviation conference. The greatest threat to safety, he'd said then, is not turbulence. It's arrogance dressed as policy. That clip alone hit 15 million views within an hour. Yet even with all his power, Marcus didn't seek destruction. He turned to Derek, who stood stiff in the corner. You get one option: retraining. You'll enroll in SkyTech's bias reform program. And if you pass, you'll have a job. Not in first class, but in freight logistics, where you'll learn to handle weight without breaking people. Derek's voice caught. You'd give me a second chance. Marcus nodded. I'm not here to cancel. I'm here to correct. Passengers murmured. A few clapped. A woman in 2D whispered, "That's real leadership." And in that moment, Marcus Coleman wasn't just the man who shut down an airline. He became something greater, an agent of accountability who proved that justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it simply sits down and waits for the world to catch up. 3 days after Flight 227 landed in Seattle, Marcus Coleman stood in front of a quiet press room flanked by Nia Carter, Jada Holmes, Leonard Brooks, and Maya Patel. Behind them, a digital banner read, "Sky Equity Initiative Aviation for Everyone." Marcus stepped to the podium not as a passenger this time, but as a policymaker. His voice was calm, resonant. "This isn't about one airline," he said. "This is about every system that thinks appearance is a metric. Every gate where bias hides behind a smile. Every algorithm that calculates value by skin tone, age, or attire." He paused as the room fell still. What happened to me on Horizon 227 wasn't personal. It was structural. And starting today, we begin dismantling it. With that, Marcus unveiled Sky Equity, a sweeping reform mandate adopted by Horizon and 5 major U.S. airlines within 48 hours. It included mandatory anti-bias training for all crew, real-time behavior auditing via SkyTech sensors, and the elimination of all visual risk score algorithms. More significantly, it required airlines to make internal crew behavior logs and seat reassignment decisions available to DOT auditors and independent journalists within 30 days of each flight. Industry leaders grumbled behind closed doors, but the public wasn't asking anymore, they were demanding. Reddit lit up with support. Retired pilots wrote op-eds calling Sky Equity the course correction aviation desperately needed. Maya Patel's Our Aviation post now had 6 million upvotes. Leonard's CNN interview with Marcus became the most watched segment of the week. Even passengers who once sat in silent complicity were now calling for reform in online testimonies. But beneath the applause and headlines, something darker was brewing. Jada, reviewing log data from the system shutdown, noticed a pattern: dozens of third-party access requests pinged Horizon's servers seconds before Marcus's override. She traced the source to a contractor with no known affiliation with SkyTech. Curious, she dug deeper. What she found blew the story wide open. Horizon hadn't just profiled passengers based on appearance, they had been selling those profiles. Every biometric trigger, every flagged risk seat, every complaint filed and suppressed. All of it was being bundled into behavioral data packages and quietly sold to private firms, insurance companies, travel brokers, and even political research groups. When Jada showed the files to Marcus, he didn't speak for a full minute. Then he said, "We don't just have a bias problem, we have a privacy crisis." Nia verified the leak, and Leonard ran the story on CNN's special report under the title, "Flight Risk: The Hidden Economy of Passenger Profiling." The public outrage was immediate and seismic. A retired flight attendant turned whistleblower revealed she had been offered bonuses to input supplemental assessments on high-risk-looking passengers' code for anyone who made elite flyers uncomfortable. Within 72 hours, Horizon stock fell 62%. Congressional leaders called emergency hearings. The Department of Transportation, under mounting pressure, fast-tracked a bipartisan bill, the Passenger Fairness and Data Protection Act, that made it illegal for airlines to collect, analyze, or share passenger identity data without explicit consent and third-party oversight. Airlines scrambled to adjust. Horizon's competitors quietly reached out to SkyTech asking to license Sky Equity tools before their own skeletons hit the light. But Marcus refused exclusive contracts. Reform, he said in a joint statement with Maya and Jada, is not for sale. While the aviation world tried to catch up, Marcus stayed grounded literally and figuratively. He visited a flight academy in Atlanta, talking to young black pilots who had watched his story unfold like a movie but felt its truth like scripture. He told them, "You're not guests in this industry. You're architects. Start designing like it." He didn't mention Patricia Lowe or Derek Vaughn again, not in public. But word spread that Derek, now in retraining, had been assigned to Skytech's logistics division in Chicago. His first assignment, an internal audit on crew treatment patterns. A small, quiet penance, but one that mattered. The system had cracked. The code had been rewritten. And Marcus had done it without yelling, without rage, without ever standing up from his seat. Not because he couldn't, but because power sometimes speaks loudest when it doesn't move at all. 2 months after the storm that grounded Horizon Airline's digital empire, the dust had settled, but the memory had not. Patricia Lowe's name had quietly disappeared from the industry. Her LinkedIn profile deactivated her pension under review. Last anyone saw, she was working at a private charter company in Reno filing invoices under a new department title Operations Support. Laura Hensley had taken a job at a hotel in Oklahoma City, folding towels behind closed doors. Guests never saw her. Her silence had grown louder than any broadcast. As for Elliot Crane, his name had been removed from every Horizon database. The company released a vague statement citing customer conduct violations, but the real sentence came from the court of public perception. His corporate speaking invitations dried up. His board memberships quietly ended. A once proud executive reduced to an online footnote beneath Reddit threads and grainy TMZ clips. None of them apologized publicly. None had to. The world had already seen them in action. But justice wasn't the full measure of the moment, because Marcus Coleman didn't believe in ruin for its own sake. He believed in accountability with a door still open if someone chose to walk through it. And one person did. Derek Vaughn. Assigned to Skytech's logistics office in Chicago, Derek showed up on time, took notes during retraining, and never once asked for special treatment. He sat in the back, studied hard, and when asked why he gave the same answer every time, "Because someone gave me another shot." One Friday morning, Marcus visited the site unannounced. He stood in the break room quietly as Derek wrapped up a workshop on conflict resolution. The room clapped. Derek turned and froze. Marcus stepped forward, extended his hand, and said only, "Earn it." Derek gripped his hand without a word, and something passed between them. Not absolution, not erasure, but the hard-won beginning of something better. And that was the lesson Marcus chose to leave behind. Because this wasn't just a story about a flight gone wrong. It was about what comes after. What you build once you've shut something broken down. And Marcus built something lasting. Sky Equity, once a reactive initiative, became a movement. By the end of the year, 4 more airlines adopted its platform. One introduced anonymous bias assessments from passengers, another banned onboard seat reassignments without video verification. College aviation programs began teaching Sky Equity principles in first-year courses. Maya Patel led a coalition of passengers-turned-advocates pushing for equitable design in travel. Jada Holmes joined the FAA Oversight Board. Leonard Brooks's documentary, Seat 1A, The Flight That Changed the Skies, won a Peabody Award. And Marcus. He returned to work quietly, without press, without tours. But one final twist remained, one the world wouldn't see until Christmas Day. That morning, passengers flying Horizon again noticed something new on their boarding passes. A gold triangle beside their names. Small, subtle. Below it, a line of text in fine print, Equity Verified. When asked, a Horizon gate agent explained, "It means your seat was assigned by human review, not algorithm. It's part of a new fairness audit we do." Travelers smiled. Most nodded. Some didn't even notice. But one woman, older, seated in 3A, looked at the symbol, then turned to the man beside her. "Didn't that start with someone?" she asked. The man smiled. "Yeah. A guy in seat 1A. He didn't stand up, but he stood for everyone. Marcus never spoke of that moment. He didn't need to. The skies had changed. The code had been rewritten. And somewhere far above the clouds, a man who had once been asked to leave his seat had claimed something far greater, his voice, his dignity, and a legacy that would never fly under the radar again.